The scorching August sun beat down mercilessly as I trudged along the dusty road, my muscles aching from the weight of an oversized backpack and a bulky gym bag. Sweat trickled down my face, soaking through my black t-shirt and leaving it streaked with white. Even my socks and sneakers were soaked. "Nathan, hurry up," my mother's voice echoed from ahead, somehow still full of energy despite the oppressive heat. I mumbled under my breath, willing my legs to move faster. How she managed to walk so confidently in this weather was beyond me. Her white-dyed hair pulled back in a neat ponytail and bounced with each step. Unlike me, she didn't seem bothered by the temperature at all. In her crisp white t-shirt, we passed by high fences concealing elite vacation homes, their grandeur hidden from view. Finally, Mom stopped at a large iron gate, fishing out a set of keys with practiced ease. She unlocked it and swung it open. A white gravel path stretched before us, winding its way through carefully manicured bushes and trees. It led to an open terrace with a beautiful expansive porch to one side. I noticed a wide paved path to the garage covered by a green fence that blended seamlessly with the designer courtyard. Everything about the place screamed meticulous planning. There was a recreation area complete with a barbecue and stove and a massive table that practically shouted wealth and power. The plantings were clearly designed to ensure a constant display of flowers or fruits from April through October. As we stepped inside the cool darkness of the house, it was a welcome relief. Mom breathed a contented sigh, setting her bag down in the hallway table before heading straight for the kitchen. I followed. Taking in the spotless interior, everything about the place screamed meticulous planning. There was a recreation area complete with a barbecue and stove, and a massive table that practically shouted wealth and power. The plantings were clearly designed to ensure a constant display of flowers or fruits from April through October. As we stepped inside the cool darkness of the house, it was a welcome relief. Mom breathed a contented sigh, setting her bag down in the hallway table before heading straight for the kitchen. I followed. Taking in the spotless interior, everything was in its place, from the gleaming countertops to the large refrigerator built seamlessly into the cabinetry. "What do you want to eat?" I called out. Looking into the well-stocked fridge, I see grilled chicken, sausage and cheese, tomatoes, cabbage, watermelon, and even black and red caviar. Mom laughed. "You could have stopped at chicken. Maybe I'll fry some potatoes." My stomach growled in protest. "Nah, I'm starving. Let's just have it with bread. But first I need a shower. Would you like to go?" "First, go ahead," she replied. "I will eat." While I waited, I nodded in gratitude for the chance to wash off the grime from our journey. As I headed for one of the 2 indoor bathrooms, I couldn't help but marvel at the house. It was clear the owner spared no expense, even going so far as to build an outdoor bathroom in the backyard, complete with a toilet, shower room, and garden equipment shed. The contrast between the meticulously landscaped front yard and the more practical backyard was stark, but both areas spoke of a strong hands-on owner I knew most of. In a barely perceptible breeze, the air was thick with the scent of hay and sun-baked earth. I spotted Mom standing perfectly still, her eyes closed, and a serious expression on her face. She seemed to be drinking in the quiet, savoring this rare moment of peace. Not wanting to disturb her, I crept closer to what looked like a wooden booth with a black tank on its the roof. The structure was beautifully crafted, painted white with boards fitted so tightly you could barely see the joints. Small unglazed windows sat just under the roof, and the door had 3 vertical slots for clothes and towels hung nearby, with a shoe shelf below. I peeked inside. The walls were covered in a warm-colored mosaic depicting BS in Roman. A simple press of a regulator on the wall would start the water flowing not from a showerhead but directly from the ceiling, covering a small area in the center of the cabin. The shelves held an array of gels, shampoos, and washcloths. I stepped back out, still marveling at the attention to detail. It was then that I noticed Mom had disappeared. Assuming she'd gone back to the house, I decided to head inside and maybe grab that food we talked about earlier. As I walked, I found myself thinking about Mom, who had raised me alone, never remarrying after Dad left as the deputy director of a construction materials company. She rarely took time off. I'd been lucky enough to visit the sea twice a year, never wanting for anything, but I couldn't remember the last time she'd taken a real vacation. I was still lost in thought when I entered the kitchen, nearly colliding with Mom, as she excitedly let out a small yelp of surprise. Stumbling backward, I reached out instinctively to steady her hands, grasping something I'd never felt before, at least not with her confused and shaken. I quickly dropped my hands and stepped back, mumbling, "Not quite." Mom cleared her throat, smoothing down her shirt. "No harm done," she said. "I was a little higher than usual. I'm just coming to find you. How about we go check out the river you mentioned?" I nodded earlier, grateful for the distraction. "That sounds good. Let me just grab a quick bite first." As I rummaged through the fridge, pulling out a chicken leg and a ripe tomato, I couldn't shake the unsettling feeling that had come over me. Something had shifted ever so slightly in the way I saw my mother. It was probably nothing, I told myself, just the heat and the unfamiliar surroundings playing tricks on my mind. Little did I know this was only the beginning of a summer that would change everything between Mom and me. Leading into the woods, my mind still reeling from our earlier encounter, the forest enveloped us in its cool embrace, a welcome respite from the scorching heat. The air was thick with the aroma of ripe berries and nuts while a symphony of bird songs and rustling leaves played around us. "Mom," I called out, realizing she'd gotten a bit ahead. "Wait up." She turned and I nearly stumbled. She was wearing a thin nightgown, definitely not what I'd expected for our walk to the river. "What is wrong?" she inquired, noticing my hesitation. I swallowed hard, attempting to keep my voice steady. "Nothing, but isn't that your nightgown?" She glanced down as if just realizing what she was wearing. "Oh, this was on top of my bag. Does it matter?" I shrugged, not trusting myself to speak, and we continued walking, and I found myself hyper-aware of her presence and the way she moved with every subtle shift of the fabric against her skin. The path opened up to reveal a clearing by the river. A wooden pier extended out over the crystal-clear water, and I could see fish swimming beneath the surface. A picnic area with "Aren't you going swimming?" I hesitated for a moment, feeling self-conscious. "How about you?" she waved, a hand dismissively. "I didn't bring a swimsuit, you go ahead." Before I could respond, she was already heading towards the pier. I watched transfixed as she reached the end and, without warning, dove gracefully into the water. The nightgown clung to her body as she surfaced, leaving little to the imagination. My heart was pounding as I stripped down to my shorts and followed her into the water. The initial shock of cold was a welcome distraction from the confusing thoughts swirling. I felt a mixture of relief and apprehension. "What do you mean?" she sighed, running her hand through her wet hair. "I believe you are aware of the tension between us. It is not right." I nodded, unable to form words. She was correct, of course, that these feelings, whatever they were, could not be allowed to continue where mother and son had left off. She trailed off, and I found myself moving closer, drawn by some force I couldn't understand or resist. We were so close now that I could see the water. "Mom." I breathed by hand, reaching out to touch her face for a moment. The world stood still, and then, with a sharp intake of breath, she pulled away. "No," she said firmly, though I could hear the tremor in her voice. "We can't, Nathan. This is wrong." The spell was broken, and I felt a wave of shame wash over me. "I'm sorry," I mumbled. I'm not sure what happened to make me unable to meet her eyes. Mother took a deep breath. "It's fine." She's clearly trying to calm down. "We're both tired. And in this place, it's easy to get caught up in the moment. Let's just forget about what happened." I nodded, grateful for the ow she was offering, and we swam back to the pier in silence, the weight of our near transgression hanging heavy between us as we climbed out of the water. I couldn't help but steal glances at Mom, the wet nightgown leaving little to the imagination, and I felt a pang of guilt at the desire that still coursed through me. "I think I'm going to head back to the house," Mom said, wringing water from her hair. "Why? Don't you stay and enjoy the swim?" "I'll start preparing dinner." I watched her walk away, conflicting emotions battling within me. Part of me wanted to call her back to finish what we'd almost started, but I knew she was right. We couldn't cross that line, no matter how tempting it might be. Sighing, I dove back into the water, hoping the physical exertion would clear my head. But as I swam lap after lap, I couldn't shake the feeling that something fundamental had shifted between us. The rest of this vacation suddenly offered. Hovering awkwardly in the doorway, she jumped slightly at the sound of my voice, then forced a smile. Sure, you can set the table. We worked in silence, the air thick with unspoken words as we sat down to eat. Mom finally spoke to Jimmy about what happened at the river, and I stopped her with a hand. It's okay, Mom, you were correct, we caught up. But it won't happen again, I promise. She nodded, relief on her face. That's good. We ate dinner, making stilted small talk about the house and our vacation plans, but beneath it all, I felt a current of tension, of possibility, despite our words, despite our best intentions. I knew this wasn't over. As I lay in bed that night staring at the unfamiliar ceiling, I couldn't help but wonder what the coming days would bring. We'd opened a door that couldn't easily be closed, and I wasn't sure I wanted to close it at all. Sleep eluded me as memories of the day played on repeat in my mind, the feeling of Mom's skin under my hands, the way her wet nightgown clung to her body, the look in her eyes just before she pulled away. I knew it was wrong. Knew we could never act on these feelings, but in the dark of night, with only my thoughts for company, it was hard to remember why morning came too soon. Sunlight streaming through the curtains I'd forgotten to close, I could hear Mom moving around in the kitchen, the smell of coffee wafting up to my room. Taking a deep breath, I steeled myself for another day of pretending everything was normal, but as I made my way downstairs, a small part of me hoped that maybe, just maybe, normal wasn't what either of us really wanted anymore. As I entered the kitchen, the aroma of freshly brewed coffee filled my senses. Mom stood at the counter, her back to me, humming softly as she prepared breakfast. She was wearing a light summer dress that swayed gently with her movements. Morning, I said, my voice still rough with sleep. She turned a smile on her face that didn't quite reach her. Good morning, Nathan. I slept well. How about you? Shrugged, pouring myself a cup of coffee. Oh, you know me. I'm always up with the sun, she responded. We ate in silence, the events of yesterday lingering in the air between us. I couldn't help but steal glances at her, noticing the way the sunlight caught in her hair and the curve of her neck as she sipped her coffee. Mom said suddenly, breaking the silence, we should explore the area. Today there is supposed to be a nice hiking trail nearby. I nodded gratefully. The suggestion sounds good, perhaps. It will help us clear our minds. She met my gaze, and I noticed a flicker of something, relief, disappointment, before she looked away. Exactly, a bit of fresh air and exercise will do us both good after breakfast. We set out on the trail. The forest was alive with the sounds of birds and rustling leaves, make the air fresh and invigorating. For a while we walked in incomparable silence, the physical activity helping to ease some of the tension between us as we climbed a particularly steep section. Mom stumbled slightly without thinking, and I reached out to steady my hand on her waist. She tensed at my touch, and I quickly pulled away. Sorry, I mumbled, looking anywhere but at her. It's fine, she replied softly. Thank you. We continued on, but something had shifted again. The air seemed charged with an electric tension, every accidental brush of our hands or shoulders sending sparks through my body. We arrived at a clearing with a breathtaking view of the valley below. Mom walked to the edge, taking in the scenery, and I stood back and watched her. The sunlight caught her hair, creating a halo effect that took my breath away. Isn't it beautiful? She said. Turning to me with a smile, I replied, not taking my gaze away from her beautiful face. Her smile faltered as she caught the intensity of my gaze, and for a moment we just stared at each other, the air thick with unspoken words and forbidden desires. Mom was the first to look away, clearing her throat. We should go back. It's getting late. The walk back was quiet, both of us lost in our thoughts as we approached the house. Mom abruptly stopped and turned to me. Nathan, her voice trembling slightly. We need to talk about this. Did we immediately understand what she meant? Asked my heart. Are you ringing? She nodded, taking a deep breath. What's happening between us? It's not right. We can't keep pretending it's not there. I know, I said softly, but I can't help how I feel. Mom closed her eyes as if in pain. Neither can I, but we're mother and son. We can't act on these feelings. I took a step closer to her, close enough to see the tears forming in her eyes. Can't we, Mom? I've never felt this way about anyone before. She looked up at conflict clearly in her eyes. Nathan, please, we can't do this. But even as she spoke, she didn't move away. We stood 3 inches apart, the air between us crackling with tension, slowly giving her every chance to pull away. I leaned in. Our lips met in a soft, hesitant kiss for a moment. Mom remained still then. With a small whimper she kissed me back. It was like a dam breaking. All the pent-up tension and desire of the past few days poured out. As we deepened the kiss, my hands found her waist, pulling her closer while hers tangled in my hair. When we finally broke apart, we were both breathing heavily. Mom's eyes were wide, a mix of desire and shock in their depths. "We shouldn't have done that," she whispered. But she made no move to pull away. "But we did," I replied to my tracing her cheekbone, "and I want to do it again." She closed her eyes, leaning into my touch. "This is wrong, Nathan. So